Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Flight Path. We are here in what we're going to call our pre-Thanksgiving episode because we are going to take next week off, build up some of the anticipation for the big webinar coming up in just over a week, which is pretty crazy. But as always, this is your one-stop shop for all things Tern. We sort of talk about what's new in the Tern product. We talk about what's been happening, what you can look forward to. I'm David, CEO and co-founder, joined as always by Brad, our head of design, Molly, our head of product, and we've got some exciting things to talk about. But before we jump in, reminder, if this is your first time tuning in, click the like button, go ahead and subscribe. This is the best way to learn about the system that is powering your business. So with that, we'll kick off with the same way that we always do, which is a little bit of a week in review. And Brad, we're going to come to you. We missed you last week. Welcome back.
It's so good to be back. At the moment the little timer started counting down pre-recording and Molly was already laughing hysterically, I was like, oh, I've missed this. It's only been 2 weeks, but it's so fun to be back on the podcast. Yeah, I was out last Friday to Monday, basically, at a retreat with an agency in Cancun, which was such a joy. Just so fun to get to spend time in person with advisors, and also to do a little bit of like live training and Q&A. Feel like I don't know, we do this on Zoom over all the time, but it's just like hard to see people's actual reactions and like when they're confused or when they have questions. But when you're all in a room together, it's much easier to be like, wait, you're not really following what I'm saying. Like, let me walk over there. Like, let's look at it together and spend some time just like digging in and making sure folks know how to take advantage of Tern and get the most out of it. And then also fun, we did a little like live Q&A in the pool, like just, a little casual, like fun time. And I think that's when people start asking more of like the like tough questions that have been on their mind. That's like, where are you going as a business? Like how should we think about this thing? What's hard for you? So that was really a highlight over the last weekend. And then immediately jumped back into our integrations that we've been working on that we're really excited to show at the webinar and will be a key focus for me and the team I'm working with for the next couple of months. So we've talked about Project Expedition. We for sure talked about, yes, there's a tour piece of this live. I'm forgetting what's secret, what's an embargo, all of this stuff. So that, we're continuing to build out like kind of the booking flow there, which has just it's been really cool. Like once you see it working, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is just going to save so much time. I can't believe it's happening. A lot of technical details to like dot some I's and cross some T's before the webinar, but it's really coming together and it's been a really energizing week with all that.
So fun. I was about ready to like give you a hard time because like when you're in the room with everyone, I'm like, were you in the room with everybody? Were you in the pool with that? No, but like both can be true. It can be both. And I do think that is like those more casual settings, whether it's like a pool or a bar or like just hanging out like after, those are where like you get into the things that people like want to ask, but they're like too self-conscious to ask on the webinar and the big meeting, right? Like there's something to those casual settings. Molly, how was your week?
It was a crazy week. I think we've talked about, we have like annual planning coming up. So it was a lot of like long morning walks with my dog, just like doing voice notes about all of my crazy thoughts around what we should do next year. And then getting immediately back into, wait, why are you laughing?
Just imagine you walking around your neighborhood with Huck. You're like, okay, so next year, 2027, really need to invest in this. People are looking like, what is this woman doing?
The neighbor's like, oh, there goes Molly again. I think we need to get her some help. I don't know.
Exactly what it was, for real. So a lot of that. And then getting immediately back and just like testing 500 different things. We have a big webinar coming up. We also just have a lot that we're trying to get done before we have like the team offsite coming up. We have the holidays coming up. So just like a lot kind of like all culminating in the next couple weeks. The thing that's been really rewarding this week, I feel like we've been doing a lot of this big re-architecture of host sub-agency work. And it was one of those projects that, I know we talked a lot about it on this pod before, but like we knew we had to do it at some point. We knew it was going to be way more painful than we even thought when we set out to do it. And we just had to like bite the bullet. And there's not a lot of like user facing stuff we've been able to ship for it. So it can feel a little bit like, we're not doing enough like agency improvements the last couple months. But this week I had a lot of conversations. I actually was on a bunch of different calls with agencies who desperately need this. And so just like showing what we've built and hearing how excited they are. And even hearing from a few that are like, oh, I've always wanted to actually empower some of my top producers to have their own agents under them, but I haven't been able to seamlessly. Like, it's been really rewarding because, I start to get antsy anytime I don't ship something like, in 2 days. So no, it's been a really good week just talking to a lot of our users.
So cool. And yeah, that we've talked about, that host sub piece is going to be just such a game. I think about it as like the infrastructure and the hierarchy, right? That you just start to hang so many other things on, like other features, other flows. And I think that is a really cool like sort of byproduct, is that as you make this flow easier and you make it easier for like a top producer to say, oh, I can actually like literally just plug in a couple more people and they can have access to all this content. Like you suddenly take away a lot of that friction to the industry, right? So it'll be fun to watch that continue to sort of come to fruition. I had a very like different start to the week, but it was like it was kind of cool, change of pace. I got to do my first ever event site visit, which was kind of cool. Like, so Mallory, who's our head of events, is like organized this whole thing where it turns out this is pretty common. We didn't do this last year. We just sort of like signed a big contract and assumed we figured out, never having seen the ship or the space, or never been on a Virgin cruise before. And it like kind of all came together. And I was like, do we really need to do a site visit? But we did. We went to New Orleans. We were there Monday, Tuesday, and then the morning on Wednesday. And it was actually a really cool lens on sort of the other side of this industry, like the meetings, corporate events, that type of thing. We worked with the New Orleans tourism department, who has a whole section focused on like helping people bring conventions and trade shows there. And they're like showing us all these resources, touring us around to the different venues. We met with the hotel. We toured all the space where the user conference will be next year. That should have said that. This is for our user conference in 2026. We'll be in New Orleans. And it was really fun. And it's just like the wheels are turning about how we can make this like a really incredible event. I was sending Brad and Molly pictures of some of the cooler venues that we've got lined up. We were touring some things that are quintessentially New Orleans. So if you haven't already, a little plug. I walked away feeling even more confident that we're going to level up. What many people who attended said was already the best conference they've been to in their travel career. So big shoes to fill. And I'm walking away being like, okay, I can see the value of a site visit. Like you actually know what you're getting into before you roll in on day one.
Did you walk around with granola taking notes?
No, even more embarrassing. I walked around with my 360 camera on a 4-foot selfie stick, which Mallory was like, thank you for doing that. It's very helpful. And I'm like, I can't tell if you're being serious or if you're really embarrassed, but
She's very sarcastic. I love that about her.
I know. Yeah,
So David, we're both just embarrassing ourselves this week with our behavior.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I did it for both of you. I wanted you to know, so what the venues look like, right? So you can prepare.
Mine for you guys. I want a good annual strategy. Like, I don't.
Well, we're embarrassing ourselves for the listeners. It's actually all about you. We want to put on a great user conference for you. We want to have the best product in 26. That's what it's all about.
Have we ever talked about granola on the podcast? The thing that's, okay, this is coming up because when I was on site or at the retreat last weekend, the host agency that I was with, all their site visits, they had somebody who was responsible for using granola to record all of the notes and capture the notes. And there's some great stories about them basically holding it in the DMC's face like a microphone while they're, or not the DMC, the like BDM's face like a microphone. We can dig into that later, but like that is, I'm hearing across all these conferences, like Tern, it told me about granola and now I like use it everywhere as my like AI note taker. And so like, if you haven't, anyone who's listening, you haven't heard of granola, would recommend it for like taking notes on client calls, going on site visits, all those things. It seems to be really
Not a sponsor of the pod or affiliated with us in any way. We have
we should be.
We pay them a lot of money. We should get referral. Yeah.
On stage, they were like, "Oh, Grace from Tern told me about granola, and you all should use it." And they were,
We need an affiliate code. That'll be the action item for them. It's like, we got to email them. Amazing. Okay. So that was our week. We've had a fun and kind of chaotic and exciting week as always. Let's get into what we shipped. And this sort of kind of kicks off, Molly, maybe with you and some of the agency updates that we did ship this week. One of the bigger changes we made.
Yeah. So one piece of feedback that we've heard over and over from our agency partners is that there's this like fear basically of, an agent leaves an agency and they like unshare them on their contacts on their trips. And they wanted better ways basically to say, these are our agency contacts. So I'm, assigning ownership to this agent in order to plan trips for this contact. But if they were to leave, I retain kind of ownership of that contact. And at first glance, right, that seems pretty easy. You just lock down those contacts that are shared with the agency. But it turns out there actually are different use cases and different models, like basically everything with the travel industry. And yeah, there are different models that basically work with different agencies. So for some, they're like, hey, you're nice. You're doing your own work, marketing, building leads with your contacts. If you build relationships and create contacts while you're under my agency and you leave, take those contacts with you. You've done that work. You've built up those relationships. That's great. Some are like, that's great for the ones that you do relationships with. But for the ones that I market and get leads for you, I need to retain ownership over those contacts while you can take your contacts with you. And some are like, hey, as a part of being in my agency, any contacts you create relationships with, those are, agency contacts. And so because of all of these different nuances, we had to take an approach that was fairly nuanced, where if you're an agency owner, if you're an agency admin, any contacts that you import, any contacts that you create, by default, those will be agency managed. And all that means is anyone that's assigned to that contact can't actually remove you as an agency from that contact. So again, if they leave, you can just easily transfer ownership and you never lose access. You can, if you are bulk importing and maybe you're doing it like for your agents, even though they technically own it, you can always like mass add a no to the import column. I'm getting into the nuances. We have a whole help center article on it. And so like those exceptions, we support. And then by default, if your agents are creating their own contacts, we don't assume that they're owned by your agency. You can always tell them as your policy that they should turn on that setting because you own them, the contacts. Or you can always go into any agency shared contact and turn that setting on. So that's always in your control to do. And so hopefully this is a big step forward to supporting some of those needs and assuaging some of those fears, while also making sure we're supporting ICs and what agents need and making sure they feel empowered with contacts that they own. So yeah, I feel like I said contacts and managed and owned a lot, but like hopefully some of that made sense.
I think what's cool about this update and maybe just sort of like zooming out a little bit, there's two things we think are really important. In our Vision 2030 webinar, we talked a lot about this, where like the sort of relationships, the experience, expertise that exists in travel is a lot of like where the intellectual property lives. And so to Molly's point, there's all these different models on who sort of like found that contact, who maintains the relationship. Like there's all these different structures that are generally dictated by the agency contract or dictated by how you run your business or the agency you've decided to join, like where the lead came from. There's all this complexity, right, that goes into this really important thing. And so what I think is really cool, and what Molly said in the way the team built this, was it's not like, okay, we need to solve this problem, let's just like change it for everyone. We actually dug into the nuance and are really continuing to say, we understand how important your relationships are in your travel business. It is the most important thing. And that is true up the stack. And so thinking about the right way to replicate these different structures with this permission set, with like who creates it, where it's coming from, is what we tried to really get right here. And I think the approach with defaults and all those types of things really did that pretty well. And like anything with Tern, we'll continue to listen to feedback and iterate and improve. But what I want the listeners to hear is like, we really value this intellectual property that you all own or that like that is owned by somebody. And we want to make sure that the system enables effective work while also being thoughtful about that. Okay, well, moving on to Molly did it, quality of life with Brad once again. Brad's back on the pod after a week off in the pool. And Brad, what's new? What have we made updates with?
I also just realized that this is the same motion for the SpongeBob meme that's like, nobody cares. So I hope you care more, and that is not what you think of when you hear us talk about quality of life. Okay, so the first update we made is related to the group trip sign-up flow. And I've been hearing murmurs from folks over the last couple of weeks, basically, that's like, hey, I keep having these situations where people are signed up for the group and they go through and the sub-trip's created for them, but like, they're not picking their rooms and they're not authorizing. Like, what do you think's going on? And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I haven't heard that a whole lot. And then it was like bubbling up more and more. So I finally dug into it and realized that basically the UI, like the messaging that existed between that handoff between, I filled out the initial kind of form answers and, I need to quickly confirm authorize my email, confirm my email in order to do the more sensitive things like pick rooms, make credit card authorizations. It wasn't actually clear that was required. The flow used to be like, there was a submit button on the form, and you'd see the screen that's like, verify your email. This helps payments stay secure. And you're like, cool, but like, I just signed up for this trip. I'll do that later, right? Like when I have to pay, I'll do that. So yeah, we dug into this and realized, actually, there's quite a few kind of minor copy tweaks we can make in the product to make it much clearer that like, hey, that first initial form is really the first step. It's not the full required flow. So we changed it on the initial form. Instead of a submit button, if there's more steps you need to do, surprise, surprise, it says next. And then the next screen, instead of saying verify your email, it says verify your email to continue. This is required. The email that lands in your inbox as a traveler says finish signing up for your trip. Click this link to finish signing up. So just much more direct and targeted of like making sure people are moving through the flow and not just hitting a page where there's some ambiguity about whether or not they actually need to require it.
And you built this with The husband you stole from Ursula?
Actually, no, I didn't use Claude at all. So, all right, in the AI coding world, Claude and Cursor keep just like fighting their way up the chain, and Cursor is now my new BFF when it comes to coding.
It's mine too. I've been liking Cursor lately.
There's this new, okay, you don't need to talk about it. There's a new plan mode that works really, really well. So you can like talk about what you're trying to accomplish first before it just starts writing, and it's really effective. And that is really helpful.
So Claude is now officially Ursula's husband again. Cursor now we're fighting over, and
You might
This is like
say that.
this is like a snapshot into why like the big like talk in the tech industry is like how durable is the AI revenue, and it's because of this, right? It's like new feature rolls out, it's like everyone's pivoting back over to Cursor, now it's back to Claude, then it's like OpenAI, and now there's Gemini 3 and whatever the hover thing that they're announcing is, and like it's all over the place.
You missed Nano Banana as one of the options.
Nano Banana was that was an image thing though? I thought that wasn't like a yeah. So you got Nano Banana, like all the young kids or whatever is using Nano Banana. Or, I don't know.
yeah,
Anyway.
it's
All right, any Tern related conversations for a group sign up? Any commentary?
just
You nerd baited us there with the AI.
yeah. I forgot what we were trying. No, I'm just really excited. I think it was cool to just see like this has been bubbling, like simmering problem for a while, and Brad was just like, you know what, enough is enough. He just made it happen. It's so much better. I think it'll really improve conversion. So yeah, just appreciate you, Brad.
Cool, thanks. And then that's not the only quality of life improvement we made, which is kind of surprising because we're really trying to just like crank stuff out for the webinar, but we still continue to find time for these other items to slot in here. So a few other things to highlight on the dashboard under tasks. If a task is associated with a contact, now there's a little chip, shout out to Ursula, there that you can easily one-click access the contact that task is related to. We already would show the trip it was related to there before, but we didn't have contact. So that's a little improvement. We tackled one more spot where Finn, the little intercom bot, was covering up a button, which was if you were looking at an email thread in Tern, you couldn't schedule the email to go, like your reply because the little drop down to schedule it was covered. So I think that's the last one, but I say this every time. Send me an email if you find another. And that's it for my quality of life stuff. But Molly's got the last one here.
Yeah, I wanted to brag about this one. We got a fairly like urgent request from one of our customers about how much they really needed to be able to see their sales numbers without non-commissionable bookings included. And I just like put it in our Slack channel, and Jack, our amazing like head of data and AI and all the things, just like literally an hour later was like, oh, there's a new filter for you. And so now you can go into any agency sales or advisor sales report. You can just exclude non-commissionable bookings from that report, and you can save it as a view so that you can permanently just remove those. So big shout out to Jack. That was a huge quality of life, huge little win this week, but a really important one.
Huge little win. I like that.
Getting big little lies.
No.
Always getting better, and we'll sort of move in now to the like week ahead. I think we mentioned a couple times on the webinar or on the podcast that we have a big webinar coming up. It'll be the last big webinar of 2025, which is crazy that we're already there. It feels like not that long ago we were talking about the first webinar of 2025. But we've got some really cool stuff to sort of bring to life, right? Some of these flows that we've teased on the podcast even today, right? Like what does booking look like in Tern? How does this sort of evolve? Like there's a bunch of other things that we'll start to show. So definitely register for that if you haven't already. The other kind of maybe like news item is that we're running sort of the Black Friday sale. So if you are on a monthly subscription right now, you can convert to an annual subscription and get an even better deal. If you've got friends who've sort of been on the fence, they want to try it, like this is the always kind of every year the best deal that we offer on Tern. So check that out. Details are just like taking over our homepage right now on tern.travel. And with that, let's get into sort of the week ahead. Again, when we say week ahead, it's actually going to be now basically until after the webinar, because we decided not to record a flight path. We got a lot of people out traveling for the holidays next week, Thanksgiving here in the US. And so we'll see you all in 2 weeks. So like, what's the next week to 2 weeks look like for you, Molly?
Well, I mean, Thanksgiving will be really cute with the kids and the whole extended family. It's going to be utter chaos, lots of good food. I'm very much looking forward to that. We also then immediately after have our leadership offsite in Michigan, where we're talking annual planning. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Some fun dinners in Detroit. And then like, boom, the webinar right after. So it's just going to be like kind of crazy, like a kind of crazy week and a half. And then I'm scheming on something of my own. Like there's some big features launching, but there's this, I was basically baited into this on Canny. Someone told me that it would save him 1,000 clicks if I could make something happen by the webinar. And I took that as a personal challenge. So me and Cursor are seeing what we can do there. So we'll see. No promises, but it's not a huge thing, but I think it'll be like a fun little thing that I'm scheming on, basically.
Wow. You just gave away the recipe. And actually there's already memes that have been building around like the clickbaiting. I'm like, 2 trillion clicks. Well, it's just like I have to rearrange the roadmap. No, it'll be good. Stay tuned for that. In case you needed some extra incentive to register for the webinar. And how about you?
Wait, I'm so sorry. I feel like there's got to be Parks and Recs fans watching. What I just reminded myself of, do you remember the episode where someone comes into Leslie Knope's office and chains themselves to her radiator, and she just wants to give him what he wants, and then Ben tells her anytime anyone wants something from her, they'll just come in and chain themselves to the radiator? Do you remember that episode? I feel like now
Vaguely.
going to tell me it'll save them 1,000 clicks to make me do anything, and now I've just given it away.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a great rehashing.
Brienne found a way to bribe you with making cookies, and no one else has baked us cookies. So maybe you don't have to worry about it. They might not bite.
That's true.
We're just adding to the list of things. It's like we take baked goods. We take what was the funniest thing was it Jade? Somebody at Handshake tried to bribe the engineers with baked goods, and I remember like it worked. They accepted the bribe. They built the thing, and then it became this like company policy. It's like you are not allowed to bribe the engineers.
I think that was Drew. Okay, yeah.
Anyway, so honestly, there's a history of this. It's something that apparently it's a known vulnerability in our. Anyway, Brad, what's your week look like? Any baked goods involved or?
No. You know what the most disappointing thing is? We're not recording the podcast next week, but I'm going to be home. It would have been a great opportunity to be with my parents, see what shenanigans happen on the podcast. But yeah, I'll be back.
Like awkwardly try and cover the deer head. The lights may go on and off. Like, I mean, it is. Maybe we should just do it next week just to see what happens.
No. Yeah. So, but next week, I'm traveling back to Michigan. Really excited to just spend time with family. But we also have an incredible amount of stuff to get done between now and then. So Molly likes to share this little emoji that's like an eye twitching, which I think is very much the okay, that's too much. That is very much the vibe.
So mean.
No, it got frozen on my screen. Okay, this is a chaotic episode. That's what I'm doing. We'll be home, and then we're really excited for the webinar and the planning. Thanks.
Okay, you can always tell, I feel like our loopiness goes up in relation to proximity to webinar, and then you add annual planning to that, and you add the holiday, I guess. That's probably the other thing, and it just, here we are. Okay, yes. Lot going on, as we talked about. Annual planning, it's really interesting doing annual planning at a startup because you do a sort of rough annual plan and then you get through 2 months and the whole plan has changed, right? But it's sort of like still a really helpful exercise to actually start to like take a step back and say, what do we want to accomplish? Do we have the right resources? Are we allocating resources in the right way? Like, what are these hard trade-offs that we have to make? And so that's always a really good time. I feel like we have some pretty intense, heated debates. Like, there's really good discussions that come out of those, and I think it like really clarifies like the big bets that we're making, how we're allocating those resources. So that's something to look forward to. We're doing quite a bit of just like prep and thinking leading up to that. Thanksgiving will be fun. I'm heading up to visit fam as well. It's always like growing up, Thanksgiving was always one of my favorite holidays actually, because like all my cousins would come up from like Chicago. We'd always like do these kind of fun traditions. So this year it's gonna be extra crazy with like how the family continues to grow. And then this weekend is like we've got people descending on our house for my wife's baby shower that we're having. So we've got like 6 people staying with us tonight, and then all these different festivities and things. So it's going to be kind of crazy. On top of that, we have like the webinar, and we've got to prep for all that. So there's a lot going on, but it's all really good stuff. Really excited to kind of watch all this come to life. And I think that's like kind of next week. So as always, go ahead, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. Let us know what your favorite surprise was. Was it, Molly and me being nerd baited by AI? Was it Brad doing, office hours in the pool? Like, I don't know. Let us know in the comments what your favorite thing was. Click subscribe. And do not forget, please, to join us for the webinar on December 4th. We think we're going out with a bang. It's going to be a really, really good one. And we've got a lot in store for 2026. And we'll tell you a little bit about that on the webinar as well. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. We will see you post-webinar, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.